Hey, this is Alexa Peterson with the Hitting Vault. So I'm going to be doing a swing analysis on George Springer. He's had a great season, hitting .292 with 39 home runs, including 4 just within postseason. So let's take a look at his swing. Starting stance, he's a little bit more upright here. So what you're going to see is he gets more into his legs as he strides forward. So if you're a hitter that starts pretty tall, you're going to have a little bit more head movement going down and forward than somebody who starts a little bit wider or more into their legs. Let's go forward into his load. So you see right there, he goes from we'll put a circle around his head right here. So you can see right there, as he goes into his load, notice how he hinges more into his hips. His head actually drops down, and he hinges right here with his hips. Okay, so that's getting him more into that better position. So when he goes forward and gets to his launch position, he's going to be able to maintain that good hip hinge right there. So you can see he gets lower into his legs since he started so tall. And now in his launch position, we see a good hip hinge right there. Basically, it's like the eyes are over the toes. Whereas a lot of hitters, they'll stride forward and their head and spine will be in a straight line right here with their hips. And that ultimately makes you work around the ball instead of on the plane of the pitch. So his next move is really turning his hips, firming up his front side, his back foot is releasing, and his torso and then his hands are then to follow behind. You actually see him roll over his front ankle right here. We'll be able to see this all a little bit better from the side view. But just wanted to show you mainly that hip hinge that has to happen as he starts his load to help him get into that good launch position. This is a low and end pitch. Scoot ahead here. There's a little bit closer angle so you can see. Picks up that front foot. He hinges and creates more kind of bend in his waist right there. Right there, you can see some wrinkling in his jersey because his hands are still back at this point. Right when his heel hits in that launch position, his hands have not started going towards the ball, and that's creating a lot of tension in his swing, which will ultimately help his bat go through the zone a lot quicker and create more power. You can see he has some bend in his front knee here that allows him to adjust to different speeds of pitches. Going forward, you can see him turning his belt buckle towards the pitcher, and his barrel works behind him, and then it kind of comes through into the zone like that, right up underneath. We want to hit the bottom half. This is a pitch that's pretty low in the zone, just above his knees, so you're going to see a lot of tilting with his shoulder, his spine right here, and his barrel working more vertical, with these two lines being pretty close to each other, both the barrel and his shoulder being pretty close. And there's some hitters that are not exactly perfectly. Sometimes they might be a little bit flatter based off of their shoulders, but in general, most hitters have a pretty close correlation of their barrel angle, that vertical bat angle, and correlation to their shoulders there. You can see him rolling over that front ankle right there. There's a lot of people that seem to think that that's something that's totally just terrible movement for hitters, but we actually see a lot of elite hitters in the MLB especially be able to still be an elite hitter and have that kind of ankle mobility and hip mobility. So it's not something that we should necessarily teach, oh, you should always be rolling over your front ankle, but not something that we should force somebody to not do, because I really think, in my opinion, I think it has to do a lot with the force that's being generated, and then part of that has to do with the amount of basically the mobility within the hips and the ankles. So I see a lot of hitters like Mike Trout, Jose Altuve, hitters that actually keep this front knee kind of angled more towards second baseman. They don't fully rotate it towards the pitcher. Hitters that tend to do that, I see a lot of hitters, those ones are the ones that are rolling over their ankle more. And they just have that mobility within their hips and their lower half to be able to get their belt buckle to still be facing the pitcher, even though this back knee isn't twisted and rotated all the way towards the pitcher yet. Something I can't do as a hitter personally, but there are a lot of hitters that are able to kind of have that scissoring motion with that back hip, or just not even rotate that back knee all the way, but still turn the hips towards and the belt buckle towards the pitcher. It seems like those are the hitters that tend to roll over most often over this front ankle. So if you have the mobility to be able to do that, totally fine. But if you don't have the mobility, you might be getting hurt. And you probably wouldn't actually be able to do that if you don't have the mobility in general. I've never been able to do it as a hitter, rolling over that front ankle, and I just don't have that mobility to do it. So my body just doesn't allow it to happen. You can kind of see his finish right here with his back ankle. Again, that is mobility at its finest right there. Not something to necessarily be taught. That's just what his body does naturally. When he kind of catches himself after that force has been going forward, after impact, and he kind of falls back, he's able to have that mobility right there with this instability with his ankle, to be able to not injure his ankle, basically. But you can see his belt buckle is facing the pitcher. That knee is kind of more towards the second baseman, not actually towards the pitcher. Here's a higher pitch, up and out. Still gets that good launch position right here where we see that angle where his eyes are basically over his toes. But you won't see as much tilt through his spine or his shoulders like what we saw with the last one. I mean, this is an up and out pitch, and he's still rolling over that ankle there. So this is a good side angle, really good side angle. So you'll see in the launch position some things that we see amongst, majority of elite hitters is that front shoulder is slightly lower than the back shoulder. The knob is somewhere in this angle, somewhere down towards the catcher. It's not angled towards the pitcher. And the hand should not be starting to go towards the ball yet. It's because it's kind of like a rubber band effect. You're stretching that rubber band, which is creating a lot of potential energy, which basically is just built up power that's going to be able to shoot through, like if you're shooting a rubber band, shoot the rubber band further. Same with hitting. It's going to help your bat speed increase if you can basically stretch that out really far. It also gives you just kind of a head start with those hips, right? We want those hips to really start turning and then the barrel come around, not like our hands just pushing down towards the ball. You can see some bend in his front knee, good distance between his feet. Starts rotating. His front knee is starting to firm up. I see a lot of hitters that keep a lot of bend in that front knee, and that power that you're creating by rotating those hips is actually just going to be going through that front side if you don't firm up closer to contact. You don't have to lock it out. There's hitters that lock out that front knee. You don't have to lock it out, but it should become more firm. You can see his back foot is releasing here. He's not squishing the bug. If I were to draw a line right by his back foot, the heel would not go over it through that whole middle part of the swing. So overall, Springer, I think, has a great swing. He's doing phenomenally right now, and I'm excited to see how this last Game 7 goes tonight.